Back once again to another tutorial as I want to show you on how to get your pencil skirt, and this skirt which I want to make now will have slits at the front part. I have a video on how to get your pencil skirt. The other one I showed you has a slit at the back, but this one now will have a slit at the center piece of your front. So that is where I want to put my slit at the center. So there is a way I'm going to fix that slit, and I'm going to show you in the sewing video of that. So before that, let's go on to cut our skirts. So what I have here, I have my fabric cut out to make things easier for you to understand before going without wasting much of your time. So what I have here now is the biggest part of my measurement for my skirt. So from my waist to my feet, the biggest part which I have is my hip. From my waist to my feet, the biggest part which I have is my hip. If the biggest part which you are working with is your tummy, then you go ahead to use your tummy as the biggest part of your body's measurement. If the biggest part which you are working with is your tummy, so what I'm working with, my hip is the biggest part of my measurement. So that is what I want to work with right now. So my hip divided by 4 plus 2 inches for sewing allowance. My hip divided by 4 plus 2 inches for sewing allowance. That is what I have at this my front here now. Then for my back, I have an extension of 2.5 inches for my zipper allowance. That is what I have for my back. So, and for my length, I have my full length and 1 inch for sewing allowance for my skirt. So from this top to this down, 1 inch, my full length plus 1 inch for sewing allowance. And there is something I would like you to know. If you are making a dress, a pencil dress, what you need to do is to minus your half length from your full length. Then what is left is what you are going to place plus 1 inch for your sewing allowance. You minus your, let me say your full length is 60 minus 16. So what you have in total of minusing that 16, that is what you are going to place plus 1 inch for your sewing allowance. That is that for your dress. But when it comes to skirts, you take from your tummy measurement down to your feet or below your feet. So where you stop plus 1 inches for your sewing allowance, that is what you are going to make use of for your skirt. So that is that. So after getting that measurement, I will come over to my upper part to get my vertical lines. Okay, so I have my material now. So I want to work with my vertical measurements, and I will take from my waist to my hip. So from my waist to my hip, what I'm going to use now is 10 inches. And to my nail, it's 19 inches. So how do I get my waist to my hip? You can go ahead to take your from where your waist is starting from to your hip. That will really give you a guide on how to get your waist to your hip. And your waist to your nail, how to get your waist to your nail. From your waist to your normal nail measurement, you are going to come up. Let me say my nail is 22. I'm going to come up by 3 inches. 1, 2, 3. So where you stop coming up by 3 inches, that is where you're going to place your nail, because it is not going to sit exactly at that your nail area. Because if it sits at that exactly at that your nail area, it will give your client an inconvenience in walking. So it should come up by 3 to 4 inches to place your nail right there. So from my waist to my hip is 10 inches, and from my hip to my nail is 19. So it is not constant. This does not work for everybody, but this work for most people. So most of my measurement, I always use this exact measurement for most of what I do. But in a way to get your perfect, or in a way to get for everybody, if you please to, you have to do it the way I told you, because somebody that is small and somebody that is big, they don't have the same length from waist to hip and waist to knee. Like somebody that is short and somebody that is tall, it is not the same. So that guide will help you in order to get your measurements like that. So that aside, so after getting my measurements from my waist to my hip, waist to my nail, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to work at this upper part. So working at this upper part, what I'm going to do for this part now, if you are making for dress, I am just explaining this. Don't, I'm sorry for wasting much time, but I'm explaining this for some people to understand that may not know how to go about this. So please pardon me for that. So if you are making for a dress, if you are making for a dress, when it comes to your darts here, you know, when cutting your when I cut your princess dart, your half cut line, or even your off shoulder, your bustier cut, any cut which you are making for, but if you are making for a dress, that's your half cut line, the one you have at your center piece, your full measurement which you have at your center piece, that is what you are going to place here to get your dart. If you are making for your dress, so that's your full length which you have at your center piece for your off shoulder or full shoulder, any kind of thing you're working with. But that's your half cut line, what you have at your center piece for the half cut line. That is exactly what you are going to place here, because at your half cut line you are going to join there by 0.5 inch, and you are still going to join there by 0.5 inch. So after joining all those things together, when you place it, when sewing, it all laps and join to the same line or the same dart at your up and down, it will go in place. So just take note for that. So what I'm going to work with now will be 4 inches. This is a skirt. So if you are making for a skirt, all you need to do for a skirt is to use your nipple to nipple measurements to work for your skirt. So I'm using 8 inches for this, divided by that is 8 divided by 2, give me 4. That's what I'm using for this. So what do I have for my nipple to nipple measurement? Okay, I have 9 inches for my nipple to nipple measurement, so I'm going to make it 8.5. I have 9 inches for my nipple to nipple measurement, so I'm going to work with 8.5 for my dart. So after I get to my 8.5 for my dart, I will go over to my waist measurement. So my waist is 41 divided by 4. So my waist 41 divided by 4 will give me 10.2. So I have my 10.2 right here, 10.2 here. So after getting your 10.2, you are going to place 1 inch for your dart. As I told you earlier, remember you will sew 0.5 inch to form your dart, 0.5 inch, 1 inch to form the dart. So that 1 inch is for your dart, then 2 inches is for your sewing allowance. So these 2 inches which I have there is for my sewing allowance for my skirt. Then at my hip part, my hip area, I have my hip is 44 divided by 4. So 44 divided by 4 will give me 12. 44 divided by 4 will give me 11 rather. 44 divided by 4 will give me 10.5. Yes, 44 divided by 4 will give me 12. 44 divided by 4 will give me 12. Sorry, I'm trying to get my calculation. So 44 divided by 4 will give me 11. Mathematics, you need to make sure you have your exact measurement, so you don't go ahead to rush doing it. So 44 divided by 4 gives me 11 plus my 2 inches for sewing allowance. That is what I have right here. 44 divided by 4 for my hip plus my 2 inches of sewing allowance. That's what I have there. And for my nail, all I'm going to do now is to minus 1.5 from my nail. If the person which you are making for wants it to be pens like that, pens down at your nail part, you are going to reduce 2 inches. But what I always do is I reduce 1.5 for it not to be that pens. So I have 13 here, minus 1.5 will give me 11.5. So I'm going to place my 11.5 at my nail right here. So my nail here, what I did was to reduce 1.5 from my hip to place exact measurement. You know, I took my measurement including my sewing allowance, so there is no need of applying sewing allowance here because the sewing allowance is included here. Minus 1.5 inch to get my nail, so that definitely my 2 inches is here, is included in this measurement. So after getting your nail measurement, remember I am working with both my back and front so that it will be easier to cut. So after getting your nail measurement, what I'm going to do now is to place my nail measurement at my ankle line right here. So after placing it at my ankle line right here, what I'm going to do now is to roll a straight line connecting from my hip to my nail. I roll my straight line connecting from my hip to my nail, just like this. So after getting this, what I'm going to do now is to connect from my hip, just like this. If you have your hip curve, it will really help you a lot. But if you do not have your hip curve, you can see what I'm doing right here. I'm using my free hand to do it, so that means you can also do it with your free hand. But if you have your hip curve, don't bother using your free hand to do it. Go ahead to use your curves, because that is the reason why you bought them. So don't go ahead to save their work for them. So go ahead to use your hip curve. So after doing that, what I'm going to do now is to cut out. What I'm going to do next is to notch this up. Make sure you notch this up for your dart. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Make sure you notch this up for your dart, just like this. So after notching this up for your dart, what I'm going to do next now is to come down to my hip measurement. So I'm going to come down from my waist to my hip measurement, 10, waist to my hip to my knee, 19. I'm going to place my 19 right here, just like this. So after placing my 19 right here, what I'm going to do at this my hip upper to give this my butt seat. That is what it is called, where your butt is going to sit. I make here 2.5. I make here 2 inches at this top, and I make here 2 inches as well. 2 inches as well at this other part. Then I connect from here to my nail, from my waist to my hip. So it has created that space for my buttocks to sit. So once I have 2 inches here, what I'm going to do now is to place 2 inches at this part. Remember, I told you this is not going to have a dart. It's not going to be an overlap. That is why I am making it an equal. It's going to be for overlap. I have a video on how to do that. So go ahead to watch that video. It will be very helpful for you to understand. I don't want to explain on that, so I do not waste much of your time. So after doing this, what I'm going to do now is to cut it out. So let me go ahead to cut it out, then come back to you. So what I have here now, I have my side, my buttocks part, which is my zipper allowance, cut out already. So because of the shape which I have here for both sides, when sewing, it will confuse you. After you have joined your hip here, it will form in shape with this back. So what you are going to do for you not to get or receive that kind of mistake in placing this part at this other part is to notch here. So this notching indicates that this is your zipper area which your zip is going to pass through. So when sewing, you know how to place both sides the way it should be. So let me go ahead to cut my lining, then I'll come back to show you what to do next after that. So I have cut out my lining exactly the same shape as my main fabric, so you can see my lining right here. So what I'm going to do now is to reduce my lining by 1 inch. So I'm going to reduce my lining by 1 inch from here down to this other end. So reduce it by 1 inch, and I have done the same for my back, the same deduction. I have deducted or reduced my back by 1 inch. So this is my back, which I also did like that. So if you take a closer look, you will see I reduced it by 1 inch, the same way I did for my front. So what I'm going to do at this other side, what I want to sew now, this skirt, I don't want to sew this skirt and inner sewing. But if in case you want to sew your skirt inner sewing, definitely you should know that you are sewing both your lining and your fabric separately, like in terms of your dart here now. So the length of your dart will be 6 inches. So my dart length will be 6 inches. So I'm just letting you to know that you are going to do this first before doing this part. But what I want to do now, I want to sew everything together. I don't want to sew it differently. So you are going to make sure you have the same 4.5 right here, just like this. Then iron it, make sure it is straight, then you iron. So after ironing your dart, you go ahead to sew your darts. Go ahead to sew your darts like this, fold it like this, half inch, then sew down to that 6 inches at both parts, and also at your lining separately. Do the same for your back. But I'm not doing that, so I just want to brief you on how to do that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to sew my front right side facing right side for my front. Make sure when doing this you indicate your back so you don't make any silly mistake at your back. Make sure you mark this as the wrong side, this as the wrong side, which means right side and right side are inside, right side facing each other. So after making this as your bad side, mark this one also as your bad side. This has already shown that it is your bad side. But if you are working with fabric where you could not find you hardly find your back from your front, or you hardly differentiate your back from your front, you need to mark your fabric so you don't get confused when sewing. So that aside, so after doing